Decided to do episode 6. Different this time. I had it uploaded last week, but I'm not going to publish that one necessarily. Going to do a different one. So, currently working on Gutter Pine, which is a region in Anglo-Van that I am working on. Um, so, hopefully we get people join in. But, I'm currently going through the monster list, what you would typically find in a random encounter. I've had, excuse me, making my own random tables for stuff like that, so. I'll kind of expand upon them later. I'm going to go over here. So one of my players, Brian, he has something interesting, and I'm going to share a little bit off of the Discord we're in, but I'm going to attempt to be as private as possible. I brought up the fact that I was waiting on a few things this morning, which they have come in. I got a melee mat for in-person games, which I have right here actually. Let me haven't broken in yet. Here's what I got, and it comes with a dry erase marker, eraser, and it actually comes with dice. It comes with these nice looking black polyhedrals. You get 7, so you have a percentile dice in with it. And because I didn't have a lot of money that I wanted to spend on everything, I decided to try to keep cheap, and I'll eventually buy miniatures somewhere down the line. But for the moment, I'll show you here in a minute. I'll show you what I have here in a moment, because they will work out very well. Unfortunately, my playing buddy is sick. She has strep throat. So, our games are on hiatus until she gets better. I haven't opened these yet. And I'll show you what I got. So, until I get how do you open this stupid box? There we go. So, I got a box of these little pawn pieces I can stick on the board. They came with, shoot buddy, 96 count, so you get plenty, and eventually I will run my games with them. So anyway, which right now, anyway, to go back to my comment, I said I'm waiting on a few things. Got a melee mat because Carl got a first edition reprint of the Dungeon Master's Handbook. And I said, I'm waiting on a few things. Got a melee mat for in-person games, which right now is only for my older girl, but still. And I have a new case / dice tower coming in. And if you've seen my short, here you go. It's got this lovely box. Got all these compartments in it for dice, and of course it's does what you expect a dice tower to do. The dice tower is magnetic. It comes off. You stick it back in, and you just roll again. So like this. There you go. I said I got it with my theft money because taxation is theft. I understand the point of taxes, by the way. So, I have my own opinions on that, and I'll probably get into that a little bit. See, I said the rest is going to my daughter's tuition for the school and help for paying for a newer vehicle, which we are expecting to get in the next few days. Brian asked, how are you running the game for one person, one DM? I'm curious because I'm trying this with people over the internet sometimes. So I'll share what Carl said because Carl, I was asleep during this time. So Carl obviously is, he was active when I was asleep. So what Carl's answer was, the only issue I had with running for my kids was balancing combat, if that matters. And that's why I wrote the Pokemon rules for my kids, which he went through that after we were done running the game one night. Basically animal companions / retainers, but I think the baked into stuff like Scarlet Heroes and Rune Cairn, etc. I think in general I would make an encounter more challenging by increasing level / hit die of a single monster rather than increasing numbers of lower level creatures, NPCs. The action economy is usually in favor of a decent sized party, but a solo adventurer is going to get overwhelmed pretty fast. I think in general I'd maybe make a single adventurer a few levels higher than the module recommendations and keep mook numbers down to no more than 3 until you had a feel for how it was working out. Just go with whatever Scarlet Hero says. Kevin Crawford is way smarter than me. Got a viewer. Hello. What's up, Buttercup?
I did a thing.
You did a thing?
Yes.
What'd you do a thing?
I did peekaboo bangs. Peekaboo!
Oh, okay.
Now you can't tell.
Yeah.
I was wanting them, but I wasn't wanting to commit to them fully. Hold my hair corn to the side.
So, Brian goes on to say, yeah, I think a good rule of thumb is to not have more enemies than player characters in a combat. Then each round, they only get one attack on you for each one attack you do to them. Having 5 rolls against one guy will kill you. And Carl said, yep, with quickness. And my response, whenever I got back on, was, yes, action economy is a thing, and a big one. HP is another. This campaign I'm making will give players a minimum of 4 PCs if they wish to do that. For my girl, she has NPC friends and is not as deadly. She's only 8 after all. So, yeah, when we talk about curbing the difficulty, and of course, since I use Basic Fantasy RPG, that's what I'm going to go with here. For the uninitiated, when most monsters in Basic Fantasy use D8 hit dice, the overwhelming majority do. The difference is with your kind of lower, kind of like your what Carl calls a mook enemy. They will have less or some kind of health debuff. For example, the giant bees that are in Morgan's Fort, for example, even in the core rules in the bestiary, they use a D4 hit dice, not a D8. Whereas most monsters will use a D8 hit dice. When it says HD and then gives a number, that's how I make it. So like an HD1 monster, I just rolled a D8, so it gets 4 HP. With goblins, that's different. Goblins, I believe, have a D8 minus 1 with a minimum of 1. So, okay, I rolled a 7 on that, so minus 1 would be 6. I just rolled a 6 hit point goblin. Yeah, I think because when you're running a duet kind of game, you have to keep in mind that like you don't have a full party unless like they have retainers or NPC followers or whatever. So if they're like going for the true solo experience with one hero, and that's it, then the encounters, obviously you want to tailor make a lot of the encounters to be less deadly than you would if you had, say, four adventurers in a party. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I actually have Scarlet Heroes, and I thank you, Brian, again for sharing that with me. I have Scarlet Heroes. I would love to play it because I know it has solo rules in the back, and I might end up doing that one day. But as of right now, just looking at Scarlet Heroes rules, it'll give you some, and I've used some of these stuff because I think it's a good idea even for like random generation sometimes, and that is the difficulty of dungeons, right? So like let's go to their solo adventure dungeon section, which is towards the end. So, and I've thought about making a basic fantasy version of this, but there's so many people that's working on it, and like basic fantasy is without a shadow of a doubt like the most popular game to use with the Mythic GM emulator, which I do have over there somewhere. But okay. So, of course, Scarlet Heroes, if you're playing solo, does have an Oracle in the back, let's go here. Urban plots. I'm just going to go to the dungeon section. It does have hex crawling, which is cool, but you will almost never have a big city, which is my one gripe about their generator in the back. I think you should have an option for that, which it's easy to like kind of pop it in here and replace something else with that anyway. Okay, so dungeons, type, sizes, and inhabitants. So we're going to go with that. Okay, so first of all, you're going to roll, and this is just to kind of show you how this works, right? So I need a D10 and a D12. I'm gonna, and I like to use different colored so that I can tell the difference. I'm going to be using my orange and black, which was also my high school colors, by the way. So dungeon type and sizes. And I'm going to use one more D12 for the size. So I will have one for the type, the subtype, and the size. So the main type will be black. The subtype, no, I'm sorry. The type will be orange, as by the D10. The subtype will be red, and then the size will be black. So type. We got a 9, so that means it's an academy. We got a 2, which means it's a demon-ruled school. And we got another 9, which means that it is 1d6 parts each of 1d20 places. So you will have 1d20 places with 1d6 parts each. So like just as an example, Okay, so we have 17 places with 4 parts each. So there you go. So that seems, in my opinion, pretty easy to work with. Dungeon inhabitants. So we can use 1d20 down the line the whole entire time, I think. So your basic type will be bandits in this school. Your minions will be a repenter warrior. Your elites will be creed fanatics. Your boss will be a Jiangshi master. A mage will be a philosopher mage, and a civilian would be mates, prisoners, and pupils. Then you have this interesting thing, in my opinion, probably the most interesting part about it. That's the dungeon threat adjustment. So this determines the difficulty of the dungeon, right? You roll 2d6, and we got a 10 on that. The danger is roughly anticipated. The threat is equal to the PC's level. So, which has the biggest, which has the most average on the bell curve. So like it's something that will be fairly challenging, but not too difficult. And this is meant for solo play. So like you go to these locations, and like you can make a list. Like we rolled 17 places with 4 parts each, right? So like you can roll and keep rolling. Location contents, treasure found, hazard found. It's pretty, in my opinion, it's pretty good for solo play. You just have to keep in mind that there is a setting within the rule set, right? Personally, I would love for Scarlet Heroes to come out with a very basic, for lack of a better term, fantasy setting, but it works well for what they're doing here, because they're trying to make something that stands out in addition to having a solo game, right? So I haven't played Scarlet Heroes yet. I've thumbed through it. I've used several things in it. It's very good, and so I recommend checking it out. I've of course supplemented a lot of my basic fantasy stuff with it. But just giving an example. So when you're talking about like one-on-one gameplay, or even solo play, there is a scaling back of the difficulty. Like you probably want to have as many traps. The dungeon might not necessarily be as sprawling, So like, you can cover a lot of ground when you have like 3 to 6 or even 8 party members. Not so much when you're it. You have to be the spotter, the guy who checks for secret doors and everything like that, which requires time. So like somebody looking for secret doors, they spend 10 minutes on it roughly, and they rolled a 4 on their check, unsuccessful. So they wasted 10 minutes. Looking for traps, if they're not a thief, they rolled a 3, so they didn't find anything then either. When it comes to thieves, I can't remember exactly what the percentage is on detecting traps, but 87. I'm sure for a level 1, it's not going to find it. So I don't know. Just kind of keep in mind, and it also depends on the player too. Like if you've got somebody who's, like for example, they want the most difficult experience ever to the point of frustration, like they want Ninja Gaiden difficulty, then yeah, feel free. But like try to make it at least beatable. You know what I mean? Like make it to where they might have to think a little bit because hacking. If you force them into hack and slash, then of course there's always the chance for failure. There's the chance for death, and you don't really have a say in it. Um, if if they want something like more narrative heavy, then simply having them RP in the town and like having them go to shorter dungeons and stuff like that would help them out. Um, I do run gold for XP. That's something I've warmed up to over time. I didn't always used to run it that way, but I have kind of come around to that. So uh, I would say, yeah, go for it. What is this that I've got on my laptop? Um, oh, huh. That must have been something that Brian must have shared. A world building thing with Hex. Yeah, that looks nice. I just now noticed that it was in my files, and I haven't really. It had to have been something he plopped in there because he shares a lot of stuff with us. So yeah. Anyways, um, what else can I think about? Well, currently, like I said, I've been working on Gutter Pine, which is a region in Anglovan that the players are going to play in. I haven't decided anything about placement of towns or anything like that yet. I did, and then I quickly became unhappy with them, and so I redid a lot of stuff. So again, it changed because, of course, it did. Um, give you a brief go through. You seen the thumbnail, so the description of gutter pine with its pine forests and forested hills and mountains. Gutter pine is a wild and rugged region. The pine trees dominate the landscape, creating an environment that is both beautiful and dangerous. The trees are tall and straight, making it easy for predators to hide in the shadows, waiting to ambush unsuspecting prey. The forested hills and mountains provide a variety of terrain with rocky outcroppings, hidden caves, and treacherous cliffs. The swamps of gutter pine are equally dangerous. They are large and sprawling, with deep pools of murky water, tangled vines, and thick mud. Traveling through the swamps is difficult and slow going, and it is easy to get lost in the maze like environment. Swamps are also home to a variety of dangerous creatures, including giant crocodiles, venomous snakes, and hungry swamp dwelling predators. Um, which I need to add some of this stuff to my little bestiary I'm creating. Um, I forgot, believe it or not, I forgot to add crocodiles to it. So I do have like venomous snakes and stuff, but despite the dangers, Gutter Pine is also a region of great beauty. Forests are teeming with wildlife, and there are clear streams and rivers that find their way through the landscape. So, my plan is like if you're out in the wilds, it'd probably be easy to hunt for food. Um, and there are clear streams and rivers that wind their way through the landscape. There are also hidden waterfalls and breathtaking vistas that are waiting to be discovered. Um, which I'm going to try to make note of that on my hex maps. In terms of climate, Gutter Pine experiences mild temperatures throughout most of the year. Summers are warm and humid with occasional thunderstorms, while winters are mild and rainy. The region is known for its foggy mornings and misty, ethereal landscapes. I have cultures here too. So I have, and I'm going to be redoing my factions again. Though I am going to keep those criminal ones, I just don't know where I'm going to put them yet. Um, they seem to work with one particular culture more so than the other ones. So, and that would be the river folk, and I'll get to them here in a minute. So, you have the woodsmen. They're a group of humans that have lived in gutter pine forests for generations. They are skilled hunters, trackers, and woodsmen who know the forests like the back of their hand. They are fiercely independent and self-sufficient, relying on their skills and knowledge to survive in the wild. They have a great relationship with the forest elves, often assisting in gathering materials to aid in the production of medicines while aiding in protection of the forests from threats. They often trade what they have hunted with the river folk, although the relationship between the two groups is strained, as woodsmen typically view river folk as outsiders invading the land they have inhabited for generations. You have the mountain dwarves to utilize the forested mountains I have. Mountain dwarves, a clan of dwarves who live in the mountains of gutter pine. They are expert miners and craftsmen, known for their skill in working with metals and stone. They are proud and traditional. Excuse me. They are proud and traditional people who value strength, honor, and loyalty. They have a mutually beneficial relationship with the river folk. Let's see, a typo there. However, their relationship with the forest elves can be tense as they are viewed as destructive by the elves, even though the two groups often trade themselves. The dwarves have little patience for the woodsmen, as they believe the woodsmen over-rely on the forest trees for protection instead of utilizing them as a resource. Let's see, another typo there. There we go. Forest elves are a reclusive group of elves who live deep in the gutter pine forests. They are skilled archers and rangers who are deeply connected to nature. They are known for their beauty, grace, and wisdom, also for their aloofness and distrust of outsiders. They have a beneficial relationship with the woodsmen, as previously stated, and they believe dwarfs to be destructive, though they enjoy trade relationships with the race for the craftsmanship of the mountain dwarves. Like woodsmen, they distrust the river folk as invaders. We get to the river folk, a loose collection of human settlements that are scattered along the rivers and streams of gutter pine. They are fishermen, traders, and riverboat pilots who rely on the waterways for transportation and livelihood. They are a diverse and cosmopolitan group with influences from other cultures and regions. So they're going to be kind of like they're a minority here, but they're going to be like the main guys from the region up north whenever I create it. They get along great with the mountain dwarves, but relationships with forest elves and woodsmen are strained. They often employ help with guarding their river trade routes from bandits, beasts, and the chaotic races of gutter pine. And then, of course, I have not forgotten about the halflings. Halfling communities, small but tightly knit communities of halflings who live in the forests and hills of gutter pine. They are farmers, gardeners, and traders who are known for their hospitality, generosity, and love of good food and drink. So the classical Hobbit thing, right? They often trade with other cultures and often act as mediators with the conflicting races. So, they kind of like in this in between because nobody really hates them. They're just there because they're not a threat. They're just like these folk that just like live in a very libertarian lifestyle. So, Orcish tribes. The orcs of gutter pine are divided into several warring tribes that compete for territory and resources. They are fierce warriors and hunters, and their culture values strength, courage, and loyalty to the tribe. Each tribe has its own customs and traditions, but they all share a deep connection to the natural world and often engage in rituals to appease the spirits of the land. While they are often viewed as savage and violent by the other races, some tribes may be more open to diplomatic relations if approached with respect. Goblin clans. The goblins of gutter pine live in small, tight-knit clans that operate on the fringes of civilization. They are skilled scavengers and thieves, using their small size and nimble fingers to pilfer food and goods from larger settlements. Their culture values cunning, resourcefulness, and adaptability. They are always looking for ways to gain an advantage over their enemies. While they are not as physically strong as the orcs, the goblins have developed their own unique set of combat tactics, often relying on traps and ambushes to take down larger foes. And of course, we have the kobolds, because we need somebody that's going to be like there to kind of keep the dwarves in check, right? So, kobolds of Gutter Pine are a secretive and mysterious race that live in underground tunnels and caves. They are expert miners and craftsmen, and their culture values knowledge, innovation, and the accumulation of wealth. While they are not as overtly aggressive as the orcs or goblins, the kobolds are fiercely territorial and will defend their underground kingdoms with deadly force. They have a complex social hierarchy based on skills and status, and often engage in fierce rivalries and power struggles within their own tribes. So I kind of wanted this thing where like it wasn't the humans that had, the humans weren't the only ones with like kind of like faction-y kind of things, but like orcs and goblins and kobolds also get this too. And so like befriending one tribe might hurt relations with another tribe. So like you might be able to pass through the lands of this tribe unimpeded, but you might end up having to deal with this warlord over here in this other region if you want to go over there. You know what I mean? So plus, even though I'm a big fan of keeping, I decided to do away with good and evil races, like just keep it chaotic, neutral, and lawful, because because one of the earliest videos I ever did, this little thing right here, the reaction roll, right? So like I don't want, because if they're evil and they're chaotic, well then they're just gonna kill, right? It doesn't matter what. So like just make them chaotic and that's it. And like okay, the adventurers run into I don't know, One Eye, the orc chieftain, and like or Garlic the Great of the Goblin Clan. Like I had a goblin that I called Garlic the Great because he smelled bad, and I thought it was a simple enough name, So okay, how does Garlic the Great react to our adventures? Not very well. So they're gonna have to fight him. Well, how do they do against One Eye? Just as bad. So they're going to be like they're going to have some issues there. Okay. Well, what about uh, what's a good orc name? Slobbermouth the Green. A little better. He's not friendly, but he's open to negotiations at least. Okay. What about Scalefinger? Yes, I'm terrible with names. 4. Okay, they're going to have a bad time with Scalefinger. I like reaction rolls. So, okay. So, dealing with Scalefinger, probably not going to help them out. Like dealing with Scalefingers, they're going to have to fight them. Okay. Well, what about Dragon Junior? His rival. Like, okay, they dealt with Scalefinger, so what happens with Dragon Junior? 8, but I would probably give them a bonus for dealing with Scalefinger. So, like that would be a 9, which is not open negotiations, right? So, just as an aside. As for creatures, so I'm putting together a bestiary because I'd like to have random encounters. I need to add crocodiles there while I'm thinking about it. I need to change the font while I'm at it. Okay. Try to make this more. Okay. And I'll get to my list here in a minute because it's not a big list yet, but it is a list. Because because I wanted nice balance between mundane creatures that are dangerous and you know magical, fantastical creatures. So not a complete list yet. Still working on it. I will figure it out later. So like I've got some. I think I've got 4 sub lists. Yeah, I know. Is that 5? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so I broke them up into mundane, which would be something that you would encounter just by walking around. So like mundane creatures being wolves, hawks, bats, giant eagles, giant snails, and crocodiles. So I threw giant snails in. This is not all from the core rules. This is something from the field guides um, available on Basic Fantasy's website. Magical creatures. Some of them I've renamed. Some of them I left the same because like I understand that they were doing like some kind of thing, but I wanted to have the actual Basic Fantasy name so they make ease of reference very good. And I need to go back and make asterisks so that I know which field guide these came from. So, uh, magical creatures, which are kind of like not only like what you would call fae, but like um, like creatures that mythologically were created by some kind of magical force of some kind, like these crazy fantasy creatures, sort of. Which so magical creatures being fairies, pixies, unicorns, pegasi, griffins, dragons, phoenixes, and mermaids. Fantastic creatures, which are these creatures that don't necessarily have a bit of magic about them, although they can, but they're kind of like more based off of mythology than they are um, like Lord of the Rings or something, right? So chimeras, manticores, hippogriffs, minotaurs, fauns, centaurs, gargoyles, and harpies. And then, of course, horrifying creatures, which almost all exclusively undead, and this is also not finished yet. So, like I said, none of these are really finished yet. I'm just trying to go with what works for what I want. Uh, so horrifying creatures, which you would typify with like horror tropes, gothic kind of horror, Lovecraftian maybe. Lycanthropes, vampires, ghouls, zombies, wraiths, excuse me, ghosts, specters, and banshees. I will add more to this list in addition to most of all these other lists. So, dangerous creatures that you are likely to encounter: giant spiders, trolls, goblins, orcs, cyclopses, chimera, basilisks, medusa, giant scorpions, giant snakes, and kobolds. So these are going to be like if you run into them, they're going to they're going to give you a problem. Running away would probably be the best idea. Probably not worth fighting them. Um, Now something like a Medusa or a Minotaur or whatever might not necessarily be a wilderness encounter, but definitely be something I'd stick in a dungeon somewhere. Um, all comes down to really, like I'm still figuring this out, so like nothing's set in stone yet. Because I want, like, okay, how do I wish to say this? Like, I definitely want things. I want suspension of disbelief, right? So I don't want like everything to be like super ultra realistic, because you're playing a fantasy game. I got another viewer. Hello. So, um, but it's just like I want some verisimilitude, right? So like um, I don't want. I want suspension of disbelief, but I don't want to be like so super totally realistic. but like it would make sense in the world, right? Um, so you running into a vampire could conceivably happen, although it would be very rare. And so I'm thinking of how I would do these roles in order for that to be a possibility, but like it be a very special thing to happen. Like, it's kind of like a lot of people don't realize that that's where Ravenloft came from. Now, however your feelings on Ravenloft is, because some people love it, some people think it's railroady. It's in the eye of the beholder on that. But it's one of the most popular, one of the most successful modules that was ever released during AD&D's lifetime. And when it was released, because primarily the Hickmans were playing a game, and I believe it was the Hickmans that wrote it, wasn't it? I'm pretty sure. It was written by the Hickmans. Let me. Lauren Tracy Hickman. I was correct. So, okay, good. I like to fact check. So anyway, so with Ravenloft, like the reason it exists is because during their game they had a random encounter with a vampire, and they thought it was kind of underwhelming to a degree because it feels like it should have been more special than just a random encounter, which I can kind of see their point. You know what I mean? Like as cool as it is to run like a mega dungeon with weirdness and like anything can happen and this, that, and everything else, at the same time, there's nothing wrong with having a setting or a game where things make sense within context, right? So, um, it all just depends on what your tastes are. But I'm going to try to sculpt this into something like I'm going to restrict certain animals to certain terrain on the hex map because obviously you're very unlikely to find a crocodile in the mountains, but you're very likely to find one in the swamps. So, um, let's see here. But I don't know. It's just kind of like I'll figure that out later, and I'm still going to figure out where I'm going to put those factions I discussed. I discussed these factions um, earlier, and I've also put them in a lot of my Anglovan videos in the past. Like I talked about, like the Wrecking Crew and the Black Widows and the Ravens and stuff like that. So I still have plans for them. I just I'm going to put them in a different place now because I was originally going to put them in Gilded Reach, but for whatever reason, I didn't. I felt like the setting was too plain. But I liked the idea of having a bunch of these swamps and forests and mountains and stuff. Whereas Gilded Reach was going to be a city in between two mountains, but most of the area was going to be plains. Very, you had a forest. It was like trying to be diverse while at the same time, um, it was like trying to be diverse while at the same time having like a dominant feature, and the plains was the feature, and I didn't like it, so I decided to redo it. But you know, I guess that's all I've got. I'll probably. Oh yeah, before I get off, uh, I'll probably do this tomorrow. I'm debating on whether to do it on my Facebook or to do it on this channel. But found one of these the other night whenever I took my girl to the hospital because she's got strep and she needed medicine, and took her to Pilot, which is where I actually used to work when I was a younger feller. I was a maintenance guy at the local Pilot truck stop there. And so she wanted a Happy Meal when we got done, so I took her to the McDonald's that was over there at the Pilot because it was literally the only one in town open. And so when I went inside, it was the last one they had. So as you can see, it's not open yet. I will be eating it. I've had Reapers before, and I had the I think it was the 2020 One Chip Challenge. I don't know if there was ever a 2021. I really don't know, but I don't know, whatever the first one was, where it was literally just a Reaper chip. That was the one I had, and it was it was definitely an experience. This one is Reaper with Scorpion. It also has like Nightshade in it too, I think. Yeah, it has Nightshade in it because that's what turns your tongue blue. So for those of you who've never had a Reaper Pepper or one of these before, it is without a shadow of a doubt one of the hottest things I've ever had, if it's not the hottest. I have some Ghost Pepper ramen noodles in the other room, and I'm still trying to finish those. I had to quit because I thought I gave myself an ulcer. I told my wife, after this, I'm going to be done with the spicy foods because I love spicy foods, but they don't love me. But it's a crazy heat because again, I also like the pepper. So I'll just use the pepper by itself as a reference. The pepper climbs. It's very weird how it's a very slow burn. It's not immediate. Like you'll eat it and like 10 seconds later you feel fine. Right around the 20-second mark, then that you start feeling the heat kick in. And if memory serves me right, it got to about jalapeno level after the 20-second mark. Then right around 30 seconds, it was probably like habanero or cayenne, and then a few seconds later, it was about ghost pepper level, which is already stupidly, ridiculously hot. And then it kept climbing, and it just would not quit climbing. It kept climbing for a half hour, and it wasn't until about 25, 30 minutes where it quit climbing, but it didn't drop. It just plateaued. So it's like, here's the heat, and it maintains it, and you're stuck with it for a while. And the thing is that the the stinking thing, it's not so much as the way going in that's terrible. It's the other way. It's the other direction that's terrible. So, but anyways, I'm rambling now, and you guys are probably sick and tired of hearing me. So I'm going to get off. So take care. God bless, and as always, guys, see you on the other side. Once I can get that, yeah, there we go.